Hey guys, Coach Gaglione here. We got another strong lady on the line today for the Powerlifting for People podcast. How you doing today, Meg?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for coming on the call today. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
For people that may don't know who you are, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, a little background, and what you got going on right now?
Well, I'm Meg, and I'm from York, PA, but I go to school at Penn State University, the main campus. I'm a powerlifter. I just got into it a couple of months ago, so I'm still a newbie, but learning my way with the help of my friends and social media. I'm an early education major, so I'll be teaching like first graders, hopefully making everyone a nice Samaritan one day. Um, I like to go shopping and get my nails done, and lifting kind of dictates my life. I like to live a healthy lifestyle, not just lift strong. So I like to get my nutrients, drink my water, do everything that I'm supposed to that the doctor likes.
All right, very cool. So I know you said you kind of new to powerlifting, but I want to rewind a little bit and talk about like kind of how did you first like just get involved with strength training and just like going to the gym and like kind of working out like in general. Like what kind of caused you to do that initially?
Well, I started going to the gym actually off of a New Year's resolution. So I asked my parents for insanity one Christmas 3 years ago, so 2014. I asked for insanity. And then on New Year's Day, I did that for 2 months. And then once I finished that, I felt comfortable enough to go to the gym because I was so self-conscious to go.
Yeah.
So then I head to the gym and I did like the cardio, and then I would work every body part and then cardio again. And then when I went into my freshman year of college, which was 2015, the fall of 2014. Yeah. I then started to learn to do one body part a day. Cardio should be afterwards, so you're not draining your body. How to eat, that peanut butter is more fat than it is protein. Eating a lot of protein won't make me like a gigantic man. And then just recently in June, actually, my boyfriend, we started dating, and he was like, "You're kind of strong. You should try powerlifting." So then I switched from like bodybuilding, where it was like bicep curls,
Yeah.
stuff like that, to doing the main three, so squat, bench, and deadlift, off of his training. So my boyfriend trains me now, and I've just been following his lead.
Very cool. And then what was like kind of maybe obviously it sounds like kind of boyfriend kind of pushed you a little bit, but um, when did you kind of realize that you wanted to compete and maybe take it a little more seriously? I know you did just before we started recording, you started talking about your prepping for a more national level meet now. So what was kind of like maybe was there like a turning point or like a point in time where you're like, I want to take this a little more seriously. I really enjoy it. I also want to kind of take it to the next level and put a little bit more time and effort into my training.
Yeah, well, when I was doing the bodybuilding style, I knew I always wanted to compete. I did sports in high school. I've always had like that competitive background in me. And when I was doing bodybuilding, I was like, well, maybe I'll do a show, but I didn't want to, I didn't want to do bikini, but I didn't want to do physique, but I wanted to compete,
Yeah.
but that was all I knew. And then, so once I started doing powerlifting, and my body responds a lot better to strength training than it does to bodybuilding prep training. So once I started strength training and doing powerlifting style, I was like, I really like this. I want to compete. Like, this is something that I could actually pursue, and it's not just one of those things like, oh, I want to do this. Maybe I'll do it someday. I was like, just sign me up, and my boyfriend found a meet for me. And as soon as I signed up, since I paid for it, I had to do it then. So.
Yeah, I think that's like good advice. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Jim Wensler or not, but he's like a strength coach, and he was like former power lifter. And he kind of calls now we don't like send checks in anymore, but he would always talk about like when you send in the check for like your meet, then it's like, oh crap, like should probably start training now. It's time to get
Yeah.
serious. So yeah, I think that's like kind of great advice if you kind of just sign up for something and then like it kind of gives you like a target. It kind of makes things more serious. You're not gonna want to miss training. You're not gonna want to miss workouts if you kind of like have that kind of end date in mind. So I think that's great. I wanted to also kind of go back a little bit. I know you talked about kind of being self conscious initially, like a couple of years ago, and just talk about like how maybe lifting has kind of helped you and how that's maybe not only just transformed you physically, but also how it's like kind of helped you mentally as well.
Okay. So in high school, I had like terrible, terrible eating habits. I would not binge and purge, but I would binge and then I would not eat and do tons of cardio. So once I started going to the gym, if I would not allow myself to eat sweets, and then I would eat like a whole pack of Oreos, and then
Yeah.
after I did that, I wouldn't eat sweets for like another 2 weeks, and I would just do like hours of cardio, and then I would eat another pack of Oreos or a gallon of ice cream. And so when you start powerlifting, you need a lot more food to get you through a workout, and I just became more like I said, when I was a freshman in college, I started to learn like protein isn't going to make you huge, and like I learned what a macronutrient was. I knew that you need carbs, proteins, and fats in all your diet for a successful diet, and that helped me get confidence. It was more like the more knowledge I had, the more confidence I had because I knew what I was talking about. I knew what I was doing. I wasn't just paying someone to tell me, oh, eat this, this, and this, instead of
Yeah.
like these are the macros you should eat. You can eat whatever you want, or this is why it's good. Like I started to learn more through people and research on my own. And then just with powerlifting, it's more a sport about what your body can do, not what your body can look like. So that helped me a lot with feeling confident about myself because the confidence comes from how hard you can push your strength instead of how good you can look in a bathing suit, or because that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I think saw some like pictures of you. Maybe I don't know how like what the time difference was, but you were definitely like a lot like didn't have as much muscle. You were kind of like a lot thinner. Um, what advice do you have for girls that maybe are afraid to eat more, or afraid to put on muscle, or afraid to just like see the scale kind of number go up? Like what how like how has your like kind of outlook changed, and what advice can you kind of give to girls that are just like kind of afraid of like kind of getting bulky or putting on weight or whatever kind of the case like may be?
Yeah, I think the one thing that for me, I was always scared to get bulky because in high school I was like a 0, and now I'm an 11 in jeans. Like, and for girls listening to this, they know that that's a huge difference. And I had no mass on me at all because I was just always scared to eat more
Yeah.
or train harder. And I think I'm hoping that girls are starting to get away from that. If you train heavy, you're gonna get bulky, just because of how I feel like more girls are starting to powerlift more and more, and you see that they're not these like gigantic girls. But for me to realize that that wouldn't happen, it was kind of almost just doing it myself and seeing other girls that did it. You, it's it's really tricky to put in words because it was just like when you do it yourself and you're like you realize that you can squat over 300 pounds, but your legs are not nearly as big as you thought they'd be, or you can bench this much, but your chest still looks like a girl's chest. That's when like the realization happens.
Yeah.
And I think if girls wanted to try powerlifting, once they start lifting, it's more of a focus now on how much I can lift. I don't really ever think about like, oh, if I will be able to deadlift 400 pounds, will that make me this much bigger? Like, I just think like I want to deadlift 400 pounds. And I think that switching the focus of what your goal is helps you accept that.
Yeah, so you're really more your body kind of changes as a result of the training, but you're more focused on the performance. You're not really focused on like looking necessarily training to look a certain way, and the kind of looks just kind of like happen like as a result of just training hard and eating right.
Right. Like, girls are not going to get nearly as big as guys unless they're taking like tests or, you know what I mean? We just don't have the testosterone in
Yeah.
our body to get to the size of a guy. And I think you have to research it or hear about it or just believe it. Like, you have to, like I said, you just have to believe that you're not going to be as big as you think you are.
Yeah, I think people also don't realize like how much time, effort, energy, like how you need to eat to actually put on muscle. It does take time and it does take a lot of work. It's not like as easy as especially like for if any guys are listening, whatever that or people that do want to add muscle, like they know it does take a lot of time and effort. So so don't be afraid to lift heavy. Don't be afraid to start strength training. And if you're like maybe like you get to the point where maybe you are putting on too much size or whatever, then you could adjust, your calories, or you could kind of make some other adjustments. But I think, like you said, it's a lot kind of harder than people think. And I think if you focus on the performance side of things, I think that's really good advice. A lot of times your kind of body has like positive changes because if you add more lean mass, you're going to look better. You're going to look more athletic. You're going to look more fit in the long run anyway. So I think that's really good advice. So I know you haven't been lifting too long, but I always like to ask: have you ever like kind of had any setbacks, injuries, maybe hit a plateau, and kind of if so, like how did you kind of like overcome that?
Yeah, so my first competition was at the end of October. It was 2 days before Halloween, and then I had to compete again on December 10th, which for you, that's a really close time
It's a
frame, and
big turnaround, quick turnaround. Yeah.
yeah, it's nearly, especially for someone who's new and not really that experienced, it's nearly impossible to peak properly. So for that meet, just for a reference, my deadlift PR was a 375, and in my training, I was supposed to do 295 for sets of 5 easily, and I could barely get off the ground for the second rep. And this was like 2 or 3 weeks before my meet. Like this should be happening. Like
Yeah.
I was doing like 345 for 4 my first meet, and now I'm 60 pounds less or 50 pounds less, not being able to get it off. And that was how my training was going. My squats, I was under 300. My deadlift was under 300. My bench I could barely do like more than 4 reps of 145. And it was so frustrating. I remember texting my boyfriend because I would like go home from the gym almost crying because I didn't understand why my body wasn't, because everyone talks about like newbie gains. And when you first start powerlifting, you're going to have like these excellent gains and you're just going to continue to make PRs. And I was like, what's wrong with me? Like, why aren't I doing it?
Yeah.
And after my meet, I was thinking about it, and I was like, okay, so during my training meet, I had 5 weeks of training to peak, which is not really ideal at all. I had finals going on. I was traveling back and forth. It was my first USAPL meet, so it was the first time I ever did 2-hour weigh-ins, and it was also 2 hours away. So I had to get up at 6, where I'm not really a morning person. I got up at like 12 every single day the past like 3 weeks. And it was just all these factors that went into it. And when you're in the middle of your training and you're just not having a good day, that's all you can think about, and it's all you can focus on is I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. But when I step back and look at it, it's like, but I did this during this. Like I was able to lift 295 pounds when that was my max 6 months ago or whatever. And I would just say for anyone that's having a hard time, the best advice that I could give is to have short-term memory. I think that powerlifters have to have short-term memory because your lifts aren't linear at all. Like you'll have a super good day and then you'll have a terrible day, or you'll have your best day and then you'll have an okay day, or maybe you'll have like 6 great days in a row and then you'll have a really crappy day. And if you focus on that bad day, the next day you go in, you're going to be like, okay, this isn't going to work. This is a bad day. And you have to forget about the bad day. Let it roll off your shoulders. Like, just like anything else, if you take a bad test in school, you can't focus on that. Like, you just have to go in and take a better test the next day.
Yeah, I think that's good advice because, you got to take into account the life stress. You got to take into account everything that's going on. And then sometimes you're just off. I actually recently had a workout myself where I was supposed to kind of do like 50 pounds more on my deadlift, and I ended up just taking 3 singles at your lighter weight and just kind of like, because that was kind of like what I had that day. And I also, as you get stronger, for like, someone like myself right now, I'm training for like a 700-pound deadlift. So, 50 pounds is like a much smaller percent than someone who's, deadlifting 200 or 300 pounds. So if I'm off like a little bit that day, and it's gonna show up like pretty substantially, like once I kind of get up in weight. So what did you kind of do? I guess as far as like, did you change anything? Did you just like change your mindset? Like, what did you kind of do to kind of like get over some of those like those bad workouts?
Between my last meet and like right now, like what's the difference?
Yeah.
Well, I took a week off, and which I recommend doing after not doing it. I did take a week off my first time, and that was great. And then the second time, I just didn't have time because we were on such a time crunch.
Yeah.
And taking a week off really helped me like get everything out of my system. I got to like regroup, relax, get myself together, get like our training together, just enjoy my time. And then when I went into training, we did 2 or 3 weeks of just like fun training where I went in and it was like, okay, let's put 225 on the bar. How many times can you squat that? And, or let's put 165 on, which was my opener before, and see how many times you can bench that. Like, just fun ways to see if I can PR, and if not, it's the beginning of my, it's not even a prep yet. Like, it's just messing around.
Yeah.
And it's, like, not being super particulate on your form and, like, not focusing on every little detail. Like, just going in and having a good, like, 2 or 3 weeks to really just, like, have the fun in the sport again. Where you're not focused on, oh my God, I have to hit a PR. I have to do this to stay on track. If I want to do this at my meet, I need to be here. Like, it wasn't like that at all. It was very relaxed.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because I think whether it's because of social media or whatever else, I think a lot of newer lifters, they tend to put too much pressure on themselves to like be at a certain level at a certain time frame, or maybe they're just getting impatient about their progress, or whatever the case may be. And I think a lot of it becomes like when you start comparing yourself to other people, or maybe you're just maybe you just have really high goals, and lofty goals are fine, but there's nothing wrong with just like not having some structured training for a little bit and having a little fun. What I like to do with some of my guys like, after a meet is like, I'm like, you're not allowed to touch a barbell for like whatever it is, a week or whatever the case may be, and it makes you that much more hungry, and you like want to go, you want to get back to it. Like you're like, oh, you're like itching to kind of, if you never kind of take that break, sometimes like, you just, your head's just like not in it.
So it's exhausted from it, and you don't even want to lift. And
then it's like the thing that you love becomes like a chore, and if that's the case, then like you're not going to be in the sport for very long. For me, I've been competing for like I said, a little over a decade. So like I'll tell you guys, if you're watching, girls who are watching this and they're maybe a couple months in or like under a year in, years 1, 2, and 3 is a lot different from like 7, 8, 9, 10. And if you wanted, if you want to, it should be enjoyable. It should be fun. Because like I said, we're not getting paid $1 million to like do this. So it should be something that's fulfilling for you and something that helps you kind of just be a better person in like all areas of your life. So I think that's really, really solid advice. Next thing I wanted to ask. So we talked a little bit about you kind of getting into powerlifting. You kind of just kind of fell into it. You kind of had this natural ability. Maybe some people are on the fence. Maybe they're not really sure. Like, do I want to, like, maybe do, bodybuilding type training or strongman or whatever, or powerlifting? For people that are kind of on the fence, or maybe they're, like, just a little afraid to start strength training, or maybe they're not sure if they want to compete, like, at a meet. Like, what advice can you give someone who's just kind of just starting out, that maybe they're just lifting a little bit, and they're not kind of really sure, like, what the next step is, or if they should compete or not?
Well, I know, like, just to make the transition over to powerlifting, one of my biggest things was I didn't want to lose my butt days. I still wanted to do accessories for my butt because I worked so hard to get it, and I was like, I don't want to just go do these 3 lifts and that be it, and I don't want to lose all this that I've like worked so hard for, which now I know that squat and deadlift really helps that. So that was really, looking back, I was like, okay. But for someone who's looking to get into it but they don't want to lose certain things that they already have, I know with my training, like today I'll be doing squats on then I'll do like quad accessories afterwards. So I'll be doing a powerlifting movement and then I'll do bodybuilding movements afterwards. Yep. So it's not like I'm just strictly, okay, I go in and bench press today and then I go in and I squat today. And it's not just like this cut, you're a powerlifter, so you can't do bodybuilding or you can't do strongman, which I don't really know much about strongman, but it's not like black and white. Like you can do whatever you want. And for anyone who's looking to compete, I know I went to, my boyfriend Nick competes, and I went to his meet before I competed, so I was able to see the atmosphere. I was able to see what it was like, what it looks like when people fail an attempt. What I got to see someone bomb out, like what that's like, and it's an experience to see it before you go. It really took a lot of nerves off my back. It took a lot of stress off of me, off my chest, not my back. But if you want to compete, people have different opinions, but I think everyone should compete if they want to. Like if you want to compete, just go compete. You have to get your first one out of the way someday. And competing is my favorite part about powerlifting. It's like you get your name up there, and then you have an actual total. Like you have your gym total, but you have your total where you got 3 or 2 white lights, and they counted And if anyone's thinking about competing, I 100% recommend that they just sign up for a meet, find one close to them, and just commit. Especially because it's a new year.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I agree. I think sometimes people like are like, "Oh, am I strong enough?" or "Am I ready?" And to be honest, like what's great about powerlifting too is if you want to like open with 45 pounds or 50, whatever it is, like you could go as light as you want. So as long as you can perform the movements to like the standard, to the rules, I think there's nothing wrong with you don't need to be at a certain level to
Right.
compete. And I think, like you said, just establish a total, then you have something to kind of go from there, and then you have something to kind of shoot for to beat every time you compete after that. And like I
Mhm.
said, it's just a way different experience. Like hitting a PR in the gym is a great feeling, but hitting a record in front of like a crowd, in front of
Right.
judges, when all the eyes are on you, it's just like it's just way different kind of feeling. And it maybe it's not for everyone, but like I said, if you're like kind of like on the fence, I definitely recommend you try it out as well. So I think that's a great kind of way to close out. Just some people that want to find more about you, Meg. Where can people find you?
My Instagram is megabigfit, and I also have a YouTube channel that I just started. Doesn't have a lot just because school is tough, but that's also megabigfit.
Cool. And then so definitely check that out and subscribe. Give her a follow. Drop a comment below. Show Meg some love. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. We appreciate you guys listening. If this interview helped you, please share it. Please give us a 5-star review. It helps other people find us. And thank you guys so much for watching. And then we'll talk to you soon.